Stars.
What's going on, everybody? MrAWALK here, back with another Resident Evil Positive Resistance video. Today I'm going to be continuing my Mastermind map preset guide. If you haven't seen my first video in this series, I was going over the downtown map. Just click the little eye symbol on the top right corner and that'll take you right to it. I'll also put a link to that video in the description. In this video I'll be going over the research facility map. As per usual, timestamps will be in the description if you want to jump to a specific character. If you're new to the channel, I'd appreciate it tremendously if you'd like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if you found anything interesting in this video. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Basically, and right now it's probably my least favorite map, mostly because of the third stage is a little bit hard to work around. These are actually not in order, so I'm going to actually jump into preset 2. I do not have a preset made for Wesker, so we're actually going to do that on the fly once I get to her. Once again, timestamps are in the description if you want to jump ahead to any specific character. And with that, I will get started with Annette Birkin. So this map is pretty similar to the downtown map that I made, focusing primarily on dogs, as you can see. Right in the area 1, my puzzle pieces are a little bit scattered about the map in various different places. I like to actually put my first puzzle piece in this area right here because it's on this staircase and most people won't actually think to come down there and look. So by the time they run around this little corridor here, this little ramp, they will basically ignore this entire downstairs area. We don't really utilize any bloater tactics right out the gate unless you have them. This is a pretty good spot for it. If you start on this camera, actually you do start on this camera when you load into the map, you can actually lock this door and set up a bloater here. Or if you're fast enough and you actually want to make your own version of this and put a bloater down right here, you can leave this door unlocked and run in, and you can stand right here at this corner and they will not see you on the way out. And you can actually get like a surprise attack before they can even see you there. By the time you blow them up, of course, you'll have time to back out and go back to this camera and then lock the door, put another bloater down, and rinse and repeat. Same thing for this camera, lock the door, put a bloater down, pull them up, rinse and repeat, lock the door again. As far as for the rest of the key pieces, it's a little bit up to you. The reason I have this third piece right here in this spot instead of this one is because it's just a little bit further back. Maybe I have more time to put another zombie down behind them over here. Same thing with this one here for my second piece. The locks on this map are a little bit tough to justify because there's a lot of different access points to the latter half of the map. Of course, the main area starts from this door right here and you break in. Normally you would think people would just, or at least I have the tendency to bank on people going all the way around and through this door, but they never really do. They kind of just bust through these first two doors and then next thing you know, you're wasting your time over here on this camera. So, my suggestion would be to probably, I'm actually going to change this myself, change this lock, unlock this. I will actually put this heavy lock onto this door. That way we slow them down a little bit in case they want to run through here, and I can switch to this camera very quickly. This camera is very good for spawning things at the end of this hallway. This hallway is very obscured from their view on the way in, as well as if they go around. The zombie dogs might take a little bit to aggro, but that's okay. You can use this camera right here to set up more zombie dogs in this area where they can't be seen for people into the main door entrance. If they bust through here, this is a good room for any general zombie that you have. The tougher the better, obviously. It's a very tight and closed space, so it'd be easy to get multiple hits on people. This room is a little bit tough because you kind of have a mixed vision. Like, it's very hard to maneuver your cameras to lock both doors, if that makes any sense. And this room is a little bit iffy. The camera kind of obscures your view a little bit. There's a lot of like cords and wires and things like that, which is attributing to the reason why I don't favor this match too much. This room is just a safe room. This hallway, you can't actually spawn anything in here, so you're kind of better off just setting up in one of these adjacent rooms, depending on which way the survivors are going. And lastly, for this first area, the map doesn't really allow you to spawn many things here without them getting blown up, because people can shoot them from up here, as well as they can easily aim down here. And when they are down here, it's kind of hard to spawn things right next to them because they only have this area, and this area is really hard to spawn things in as well. If you're early though, you can lock this door from using this camera. Lock this door, you can put bloaters down, you can put dogs at the end of this walkway on both sides actually. Basically, Annette's overall strategy is to set up ahead and utilize this room, and this corridor to really hammer home like her potential to keep spawning things before enemies have a chance to get to these respective areas. Once again, Berserker enhancements are your best friend with Annette. And with that, I'm going to move on to the next, the next area. So area 2 is a little bit easier to manage. It's probably the best area out of this entire map, at least the most easy to manage. As you can see, I have 2 locks here. I might have to change these around because this first lock obviously won't really do anything. I'm going to unlock this one, and I'm going to put, let's see, I'm going to put this lock over here in case they run right, because I'm banking you actually want to use this first room right here because this is where most people run. It's the first door they see, so just bust through here. You have plenty of time to lock it from this camera right here. Once again, the creatures I'm utilizing are all zombie dogs. I believe one of these rooms, I'm trying to see if I can memorize the layout. Sorry about that. The layout of some of the rooms, the camera is facing the complete opposite way of which you want to be looking. Actually, it's this room right here, the first room. Okay. Yeah, so this first room, when you spawn into this camera, you're looking this way, and instinctively you want to lock the first door you see, and you end up locking this door when most people come through this door. So that's the biggest thing about this map, is you want to actually turn your attention towards this door and spawn everything basically as close as the door as possible. Definitely bloaters. I wouldn't put any zombies here because they're probably going to bull rush you and just kill everything in the main room. If you spawn things back here, you might have a chance to grab somebody. Definitely utilize landmine traps and leg hole traps if you have them. Machine guns work wonders in this room. This next room, you kind of really just, this room was very door heavy. So you want to place a lot of your monsters next to doors. That way when they break through, you're able to get like a quick sneak attack off when you're controlling them. And then you retreat to the next room to plan more zombies ahead. Definitely utilize mines in very tight spaces like these, where they have to walk through. Same thing with this area. Very good for mines if you can see it. These cameras are kind of obstructed because I believe these are kind of like water sinks or something, so it's really hard to see. But you can definitely set up mines in this area if you want to, as a net. And lastly, this room is very good for defending. By this time, you'll probably have Birkin available to you. Granted, they came through and killed the security guard, which mostly spawns in this room, and sometimes in this area as well. Birkin is probably best deployed in this hallway, as well as this hallway. It's very easy to trap survivors in this general area, especially if you take control of this camera beforehand and unlock this door. You can also spawn them in this room and trap survivors who run through here. I believe the supply zombie spawn sometime in this room, so it might be in your benefit to keep an eye on it. Birkin is not very good in this room because survivors can easily outrun you through here. and easily, have way more chances to deploy grenades, stuns, things like that. Same thing with this room. This is really tight spaces and it's very hard to chase survivors around. Your best bet is this right quadrant of the map to deploy William Birkin in. This room, if you see, basically the first thing you want to do whenever you start a map is you want to look at your map and see what your survivors are doing. If you see anyone run out in this room, they're probably going alone. You'd be able to deploy a zombie and probably get a decent amount of damage off. But with that said, my security placements for the security devices are pretty general. There's no specific right way to do it. I would avoid putting them, sorry about that. I would avoid putting them in this room because it's pretty hard to see both of these. It's very easy to take out these two cameras. That's my only rationale for that. But with that, I'm going to move on to the third area. This area is very, very, very difficult because there's two levels. You actually start on this camera, and this is actually aiming towards the ground floor. The way my zombie dogs are set up is they're set up on both sides. That way, if anyone is running either way, they'll be aggroed by them. They're a little bit easy to take out there, so maybe you could probably come up with a better setup. For net specifically, I just like to use zombie dogs because they allow me to set up other things that they kind of act as like diversions, basically, for ammunition. The second floor is fair game. This is the main area you want to deploy zombies in because it's a very high traffic area. Once again, the little blue grain you see here is the lift, and that takes you from each level. Once again, this area, very high traffic. You get off the lift from here or from these little exits here. But if you focus your enemies or your placements on this side, you're more likely to catch people who are getting ready to bust through the store. The problem with building up this room especially, because it's a pretty good room to build in, but since the biocores are randomized for every map, you aren't 100% guaranteed to get this room, although it is very common. So I would advise against putting all of your enemies or your zombies in here because it just probably wouldn't end too well if it ends up being wasted and there's no reason to come in here. Other than that, I did not have much wisdom to impart on this area 3 because it's very, very, very hard to make use of a lot of things. Birkin is very good though in these tight corridors, but people because the way that these railings are set up is actually a little bit wider than most rooms, so it's very easy for survivors to kite around you. In general, this whole map is basically kind of a double-edged sword because even if you deployed Birkin, there's been a few times where I've seen other players, including myself even sometimes, getting stuck on this lift here because survivors press the button and they send you either upstairs or downstairs, so you just kind of wasted your entire, bio weapon. But with that, I'm going to move on to the next character. So next up we have Daniel Fabron. He's actually my preset on my web. As you can see, I don't have nearly as many placements because we're going to be focusing a lot on deploying our own zombies to control. Let's just jump right into this. My key placements are all inside of the area because you, once again, as I said earlier, you don't really have much time to deploy anything in this area unless you're planning like extremely far ahead. And maybe they're like way over here for some whatever reason. In area 1, you have the detonator here. You can take control of this one and set up a armored zombie right here. That way you can take control of it when you lock the door again. Same principle as net. Berserker zombies, not berserkers. Detonators are very good here. This area I actually have a licker chilling right here. He favors open spaces. This is a very, very, very open space, and anyone who's sprinting past here will easily get cornered by this. This is the perfect time to jump into this room if they actually remain vigilant in their pursuit of this key right here. Also, that's the reasoning for this key, to force them to actually come into contact with this licker at least one time during this match. If they do stay in this hallway though, you can actually set up in the next room, put a few zombies down, or even a detonator and bust out and blow them up yourselves while they're still fighting the liquor there. Once again, this hallway has no cameras, so it's very crucial for you to plan ahead. If you actually want to, you can even set up a few more in here rather than this hallway as opposed to a net, because you want to really just have multiple avenues. If you set up a detonator here and then a detonator like over here, by the time you blow up your first one, you'll have time to switch back to your second one and then do the same thing as you lock this door. The key placements are fair game. Once again, these are the main areas I use them for, though. I would not recommend putting it outside here. Other than that, just really taking advantage of partially armored zombies and tough zombies. Regular zombies aren't really Daniel's strong suit because of the obvious lower HP. And with that, I will move on to the next. Oh, before I actually do that, the door placements are pretty fair game on this map. You don't really have enough for a lot of them. I'm actually gonna put my level 3 lock there. We can definitely switch to from this camera. You can actually lock this door, so this is perfect. That's fine. Moving on to area number 2. The security devices are pretty much the same, as you can see. This is probably the one you want to use most of the time because this room is just not fun to deal with. Sorry about that. Once you spawn in, once again, on this camera here, you are automatically looking at this door, so be careful to switch back over to this direction. That way you can spawn some things here, as well as manage to change the lock on this too. Gonna just go ahead and clear this, that way I can do this easier. I'm actually gonna put my lock. You can't use the door there though, or you don't have a camera to put anything in this hallway. Okay, I will put my lock here, that way I have time to observe from this camera and put a few things down in here and get ready to, you know, really utilize this first door here. You don't want to put too many zombies in here because most teams travel as a group coming into this area, so it'll be very easy for them to take your stuff out. This creature I have here is a partially armored zombie. That's for when I use my detonator and I need something quick to, you know, switch to. Same thing with this one. This is a pretty good spot for it. Oh, this is actually a regular zombie. That's actually a pretty good spot for it though, because they can't see you coming in from here or here. And then one more partially armored zombie. This is a okay spot. You can choose between here or on this side. They can see you from this side though, and I'm pretty sure they can shoot your partially armored zombie from that direction. And with that, really just taking advantage of all these doors to set up a lot of detonators. This is a very detonator heavy map for Daniel's case. Utilize tough zombies in tough tight corridors such as this one. And this really tight area is very good for tough zombies and partially armed zombies as well, because it's hard for them to run around. Detonators and landmines are very good for right here. Utilize your machine gun or rifle if you have anyone that's about to run through this area. It's very easy to get clear shots as people run down this hallway. Other than that, there's really not much else to this. Just, you know, barricade this room and then put a detonator down, blow up people as they run through. With that, I will move on to my final area. Area 3, once again, is very difficult. You only get a level 2 lock, so it's best to just put it on the only room available. As far as creatures go, whoops, creatures, my bad. A lot of zombies instead of partially armored zombies, because we want to be able to take control of any of these at any given time. My liquor is in this room. I'm thinking of actually removing it for the sake of it being kind of easy for them to kite this one out. Perhaps we can actually move him. It's really up to you if you want to use a liquor. If you have them, they're okay. That's all I can really say about them. They don't do too much in my experience, or at least I'm too busy doing other stuff that I can't even tell. Face them this way. And that'll be the first thing they encounter when they load into the match. It'll give you time to set up elsewhere. That's really a big part of it, is kind of just setting up everywhere else while they're still on the first floor. Set up over here, set up over here, set up in the two areas over here. If you see your barrier core is open for damage. This last area is perfect for Mr. X. I actually didn't talk about Mr. X in that last match, but basically everywhere you put tough zombies, you would put Mr. X behind them to kind of box them in. That's a very good strategy with Daniel Fabron. This is a very good room for Mr. X, especially if you deploy him over here while they kind of barge their way in. It's easy to lock this door and turn off the lights too. Landmines are great for this general area. Very high traffic. This is definitely the room you want to strive towards when you're playing as Daniel. With that said, I will move on to the next character. Next up, we have Alex Wesker. I did not, from the looks of it, actually make a research facility map for her, so I'm actually going to do it as we go. And this will actually give you a little bit of insight into my own thought process as I make these. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to put this key here, leave this here, move this one a little bit further back. Creatures and traps, you can press start and clear. That'll clear all the traps. We are going to utilize, wherever you are, the infectious zombies, because that is her strong point. And we're going to put them right next to the keys. One here, especially. Definitely one here. Pretty sure I want to aim him this way. Come on. That's good enough. Have enough for one more. And we're just gonna really put them in sort of towards the entrance, because once again, infectious zombies have a gas AoE that does poison damage. Not poison damage, but it infects survivors. Just for them staying in it, as well as your attacks with infectious zombies do extra poison affliction, which is good. We always have enough for one more with a tracker mine. We can actually put that really wherever you feel. This is an okay spot. It's a very tight area. I'm thinking of putting it in this room, but I'm actually going to put it under the infectious zombie's foot there. That looks good enough to me. As far as the game plan for this map, obviously when you spawn out, if you equip bloaters or detonators in your deck, you would utilize the same trick that I've mentioned almost 100 times by now. It's probably the most effective strategy with the mastermind, because it's very low risk but pretty high reward. Lock this door, same principle. Behind this door you can deploy detonators, or you can deploy infectious zombies and try to get as many infected as possible right here. That way you have time to switch to this side and do the same thing. Really, a lot of these rooms, much like Daniel, you're gonna try and put infectious zombies before they get a chance to come in. That way you can take control of them and then really just go ham as much as possible. This room, kind of the same deal. They won't be able to see this one because there's a whole wall covering it. And you can really make use of this infectious zombie here. And lastly, for this room, infectious zombies are very good towards the door. Once again, this map is very door heavy as far as like strategy goes. You don't have a lot of open space to work with. Or actually, let me rephrase that. There's a lot of open space to work with. So you have to utilize the open doors when you can, because they're more likely to get shot running through areas like this. And with that, I will move on. Before I do that, actually, let me change this. to unlock this one. I'm actually gonna put my lock here because I really want to bankroll this first area right here. Gonna go ahead and move on to the next area. So once again, security devices are in pretty much the same area. I'm actually utilizing this second area for the first time, just because there's no reason for me to put anything in this. This room is more of a bait room to put things in this area if they keep running through. The door locks, as you can see, are on both sides of that. The creatures that I utilize are actually the wrong creatures, because once again I have not actually changed this one. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these. Put an infectious zombie basically in front of all your security. You'll have plenty of time to take control of them, so don't worry about actually we're going to put this no, we can still, we'll put him here. That way he's at least blocked by something, so he won't get shot. And we will put the last one right here, as close to that edge as possible. That way you still get some of the gas cloud onto the security kiosk right there. I'm going to put this tracker mine right in the middle of this because it's pretty, might be easy to spot, but if you're ahead of the game, you'll definitely be able to deploy a few zombies to take control of. Once again, on this area 2, as opposed to other ones, you really get to utilize these doors a lot, as well as make use of the sort of walls that obscure vision, so you can deploy things over here without much consequence. Same thing with these corridors here. They're very tight, so it's easy to hide stuff behind them and take control of them and kind of come out and sneak attack. Detonators are very strong on this map, so definitely take control of those when it is viable to do so. Your Yatevo plant, you'll definitely have it by the second area. The same thing with every mastermind. You want to set it up pretty early, as opposed to blocking this entrance, because it's a pretty wide entrance, so people are actually going to be able to just slip through here without you being able to use anything. I would personally recommend, if you have survivors that are running through here early, or all the survivors bunch up in this room, you're able to deploy it at this door and block it. They will not be able to get past you. You're gonna have to bank on this room here. I would say put it in this hallway, but if they're really desperate, I guess you would say, they would just run all the way around. And one, it would waste time, so that's good on your part, but you know, the potential of just sprinting to the other side of the map is pretty dull, if you ask me. You could also plant it in this little spot right here if all the survivors are just chilling in here, but it's a little bit harder to see it from this hallway, and it's probably, actually I take that back, I don't think that's even possible from that camera, or this one for that matter. Yeah, there's really not much other places you could really put it without much consequence. I would say if you don't want to use your security device here, you can actually put it here, then use your table plant right here, and that would stop anyone from coming in here, but you would have to deal with people running from both entrances, which isn't the most optimal. And with that, I'm going to move on to area 3. The door is the same, that lock on the upper left side. Creatures, gonna get rid of all of them because these are not my creatures. Infectious zombies. The good news, we have 15 points, so we can actually put one on every biocore here. I'm gonna face them the other way. This area is probably the best for them because it's a little bit more narrower than the last two I just put down. And even if these don't end up being controllable, we're actually gonna put this one in the middle, actually like right here. It's like gas clouds, like right in the middle there. What was I about to say? Yeah, so even if these battle cores aren't selected, mostly for these two here, you can actually just easily move these zombies to wherever you want to go, basically, because the survivors are going to pick one direction and they're going to most likely stick to it. You aren't too affected by the lift as Alex Wesker, so I wouldn't really worry too much about this. Just take control of it when necessary to send survivors to the bottom floor or the top floor, vice versa, depending on what you need. This final room, very good for infectious zombies, especially when you spell them out, especially when you spell them out a little bit, because you're able to spread out that gas cloud a little bit more evenly throughout the entire room. Your table plant is very good for this area right here. You can easily hit all survivors that are kind of just wasting their time here, as well as you can block the exit on the way out, which is very good. They can't do anything about that if you set up right here. They can't run around you. This is also a pretty good spot for your table plant, although I'm pretty sure they can run around the sides if you aren't placed properly. Lastly, the table plant is good on the entrances, or actually that's my bad, of the lifts if you are able to plan ahead. Really, the table plant's entire purpose is just waste time as much as possible, so it's good when it works, but it's kind of hard to make use of it sometimes if you're not good with your placements, so definitely take advantage of that when you can. And with that, I'm going to move on to the last final character, Spencer. Sorry if I sounded a little bit nasally towards the end there, I was a little bit congested. Alright, last up we're going to use Spencer here, and we're just going to jump right into it. So for area 1, the puzzle pieces, I'm actually going to move one of them to this spot right here. And with Spencer, we're really taking use of the detonator strategies to put detonators right outside these doors, blow them up. Same thing with every respective mastermind. This camera is very good for machine guns if you have them. Turrets are good for this camera if you just want to set something up and then really move on to the next area. Turrets are very good for this camera right here because it gets a very wide scope of the area. This camera is very important for the survivors who just kind of wander their way through here. Right here I have a leg hold trap specifically, and it's very good to put, if you have them at the time, the crawling zombies on top of them because they kind of conceal the leg hold traps there. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow people to kill that zombie, but the zombie doesn't actually like disappear, it just kind of lays down. And most people, when they neutralize the threat, they tend to just run over it without much care in the world. That leads for a very, very easy leg hold trap here. I'm actually going to move this one like a ½ inch, if I can, to the right. That way it's a little bit closer to the wall here for the people who are going for the key part here. If you kind of chill out on this camera for a second and let the vents here pan out by turning off this light, you might just get a good leg hold trap here. And if you take control of the camera, if you have any type of gun available, any gun will do, you will 100% get a kill, unless their teammates are there to kind of help them out of this trap. Most people come to this area alone though, so you might get lucky here. This area is very good for leg hold traps right here. It's also a pretty good area for like rifles, sometimes turrets, depending on your current cards on hand. This room is very good for machine guns, directing fire towards this hallway. You want to use a rifle or a turret on this area. People are coming through from up here. It's very rare though that you'll actually get a chance to do that, so take that as you will. Turret's very good for this camera. This camera is very good for any gun. Detonators also are very crucial to this map. Once again, same thing with every other character. Detonators are just very good. Let's see. Other than that, the mine placements are in front of doors, and this one can actually be moved to I'm actually gonna put it right here. Only because this open area here, it's a little bit easy to dodge that. With that, I'm going to move on to my next area. Area 2, kind of the same deal. Security devices, I'm actually going to move this one from here to here. This little landmine here is pretty concealed. I think there's actually a, no, just a landmine, okay, that's fine. You can put a leg hole trap here if you want to, it's really your call. Landmines are very good behind doors. Once again, this landmine is pretty good. If you want to put it in the middle here, that's fine too, but it's definitely a lot more visible and easier to spot before they run through here. This camera is great for turrets if you have them available. Same thing with this camera. This camera is very good for machine guns or if you want to set up a detonator early. Once again, at the start, this camera is automatically facing this door, so keep that in mind. You can actually put detonators over here on this camera. And definitely lock this door at the start, because they're probably going to come barreling through here. I keep my next lock on this door, so I can set up a detonator in this one if I have to. That way I can lock it again. And lastly, this room is very good for machine guns. You have a wide view. Your depth field is pretty effective right here as well. It's actually effective in front of every, besides this one, it's a little bit harder to utilize it because this camera gets destroyed a lot. But if you're able to, putting a depth field horizontally here, or vertical depending on however you want to say it, it's pretty effective. This area is where it gets a little bit tricky, but you do have two different angles to choose from, so use that to your advantage. Depth fields are also very good in this hallway if people are trying to barge through this door. Do not use your depth field at this last exit here. Most people are going to be able to step out. There's not a lot of room to confine them to, so do take note of that. This camera, you know what, I will actually, this camera is actually pretty good for rifles, but if you want, and you want to utilize your depth field more, this is a pretty good spot for it. So either of these work, it's really your call as far as security placements, but the philosophy of the game plan of Spencer is more or less the same. And with that, I will move on to Area 3. Area 3, you're going to have to use your map a lot, especially as Spencer. The door is the same, obviously. But landmine traps are always if I can take control of one of these. Actually, just take control of the door, my bad. The landmines are always kind of in the middle of high traffic areas. These two you won't really see get blown up much. I'm actually going to move them to the second floor, come to think of it. Put it as close to this as possible. With that one, do the same thing, kind of mirror that last one. Tracker mine, you can kind of put it wherever you want, really. I'm actually gonna move this one. Honestly, I think that's a decent enough spot. You won't really utilize this one too much, but there's not many other places you can put it without survivors kind of catching you on and destroying it appropriately. Once again, on this map, you're gonna have to make use of your cameras a lot more than you normally would, especially because it's very easy to get confused on which level you're on. Rifles are very good on these two kind of cameras on the outside here. Not rifles, the turrets, my bad. Because they have a whole view of this area, as well as on this side, the same thing. Turrets also good on this camera because it's the same thing. You have this whole area. You can utilize machine guns or depth fields on these two here. Depth field is very good for this small area here. Same thing with this little corridor here. People are, if you're locking this door accordingly, You can easily get a whole team if they're too preoccupied on getting out. And lastly, your death field is actually pretty useful for this exit here, because you can use it from either of these three respective cameras. And that about wraps up my video for the research facility map guide. I will probably be doing the rest of them more or less later on this weekend. Other than that, if you have any input or you just want to let me know anything about the video, you can totally let me know in the comments. I definitely check all of them and I try my best to respond to each and every one of them. I appreciate all the support that you guys have given my video so far. It means a lot to me. And with that, please like, comment, subscribe if you found anything useful in this video, and I will see you all next time.